right, so let's get started. You've got a little intro to TextLess Livermore here on the first slide. I usually take the first slide when I'm giving this presentation like I just did to introduce myself, to give a little run of show. I usually like to say, especially when we are on Zoom, about how long I'm planning to run, just because nothing's worse than being on a Zoom meeting where you're like, wait, I don't actually know how long I signed up for. Is this going to be an hour? Is it going to be 45 minutes? We're going to try and keep this presentation part to around 30 to 45 minutes. This PowerPoint, the slides are designed to be about 30 or 45 minutes long, depending on how in-depth you want to go into some of the discussions and activities. And we'll get into that as we go. But here on the first slide, you'll see TextLess Livermore's missions summed up in the most concise way possible. Our mission is to end distracted driving and promote digital wellness so that we can help everybody live more every day. I'm going to get into a little bit more about what that means in a second. Here's another little run of show slide. So basically the way this is going to go is I'm going to tell the story of TextLess Livermore, introduce you all, and you'll be introducing your audience to the mission, to the spirit, and why TextLess Livermore exists. Then we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the mission and about what some of the facts and figures are behind that. So we'll talk about some hard numbers surrounding distracted driving and digital wellness. And then the last part is the action plan. So things that you can get your community involved in, as well as some more concrete discussion questions for the group that you're working with. So I know some of you might want to be presenting this to your chapter. Some of you might be thinking about presenting it to your entire school, or perhaps another extracurricular group that you're involved in. So you can really do this any number of ways. It's very customizable. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll just keep going here. So this slide is where we begin the mission. This is the video that I mentioned. So I'm going to click to the next slide where you have the video a little bigger, and I'm going to play it. And before I hit play on the video, I usually like to say, this is not an easy story. TextLess Livermore was born out of a tragedy, like a lot of organizations like TextLess Livermore. And we know that students like you who are involved in SAD and SAD chapters often are born out of a place of tragedy. You know, maybe you came to SAD because something happened in your community. And of course, all of you know that SAD was founded because of a crash that cost a young life in Massachusetts. So I like to put that little caveat here just because it can be a pretty heavy way to start the presentation. And especially because often when I'm presenting this, I like to keep it as light as possible. So the vibe shift can be kind of hard. But so that's the little trigger warning there, that this is a hard story, but that there's nothing, you know, graphic in this video. And then I click through and we will watch it here. Is the audio okay?
I remember nothing, and then the most pain I've ever felt in my life. I can't even see what's going on. I can't feel my toes. I can't feel my hands. My back is on fire. I end up asking my question, why?
When Merritt was born, she's our eldest, most amazing experience that I've ever had.
She had a curiosity, and she wanted to see the world, and she was fearless.
She came to us and she said, for the summer after I graduate, I want to bike across the country.
Yeah, like who does this, right?
Yeah. Who wants to spend 6 weeks riding 3,000 miles across the country in the heat of the summer?
If you ever see a bike tour, we look like a circus on 2 wheels. It's hard not to see us.
Or you hear Merritt singing,
yeah,
and Jeff cracking jokes.
I was in my driveway and I got a call from somebody who was a part of the organization that there'd been an accident, with the news that Merritt's injuries were really severe.
It was a gorgeous, gorgeous day.
When we lifted from the scene, I remember looking down and thinking, how could someone not see that large of a group of people on bicycles?
There were no skid marks. There were no other cars on
We
the
didn't
road.
even know that. We just knew that they all had been hit by one vehicle.
By one vehicle.
Merritt was in the ICU and Jeff was in the ICU until we were told that she was on life support. And then shortly after that, she was being taken off life support. And that we had the option of saying goodbye to her if we wanted to.
The gentleman, the young driver, the 21-year-old, had been having a series of texts. I believe it was 401, 402, 403, 404, 911. And so we knew then that she had been killed by a distracted driver.
Would wish this upon no one, ever.
They said they have two options. They could either keel over and let the grief and the sadness take over, or they could do something.
TextLess Live More is a peer-to-peer national awareness campaign to end distracted driving.
We had never had a chance to even meet them until they walked through the door. It was, I don't know.
Very
I
emotional.
can't even talk.
And they knew exactly who we were.
Didn't expect that.
Thank you all for taking some time out of your afternoon to attend this event. Rich and Anna Levitan have been very generous and kind to come speak with you today.
So what happens when you're a mother and you hear you might lose your firstborn? Time stands still.
I love the saying, text less, live more. And what I love about it is the living more part.
That's taking someone's memory and making it a legacy.
They want Merritt to live on.
There's so much there that I think embodies Merritt's spirit and gives us hope that one day this will be a thing of the past.
Okay, so move to the next slide here, and this always happens. Give me one sec quickly. When you do the presentation, you will see that this is what always happens when you bring YouTube into the mix. So I like to start with that video because I think that it's a really critical part of understanding the mission of TextLess Live More, is knowing where we came from, and knowing some of the people who are involved in the story. Of course, Merritt, who is the inspiration behind our mission, but also, you know, learning that this is something that was begun by a group of high school students, right? Merritt's friends founded TextLess Live More because they wanted to do something instead of, you know, just sitting in the grief. They wanted to make that into action. So this slide, I would say, is a great place for you to share a personal story or a community story, or to tie this to the group of people that you're speaking to individually. I know, like I said before, many of you unfortunately do have personal or community stories that echo this one, and talking about why this is so important. And then this is where we first see our mission totally spelled out. So through peer-to-peer dialogue, education, and behavior modification, so just changing the things you do around the dangers of distracted driving, our goal is to save lives and prevent crashes by ending distracted driving permanently. So getting a little bit more into what exactly that means, and a little bit more of that duality behind our mission that was touched upon in the video. So we have a nice little flow chart here. And I like to think about our mission as having two pieces that flow together in this circle. The TextLess piece is sort of like the literal side of things. So if you think about, you know, literally when you're behind the wheel, if you text less, if you don't use your device, if you don't engage with your phone. And, you know, obviously we are called Text Less, Live More, but we know that there are lots of other things that folks are doing on their phones that are super distracting. You see a lot of TikTokers filming themselves while they're driving. You see people taking pictures or videos or messing with Spotify. All that stuff is encompassed in this, of course. So if you don't engage with your device behind the wheel, then you are literally giving yourself a chance to live more, right? You're going to be safer on the roads. You're keeping your passengers safer. You're keeping other drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, everybody that you're sharing the road with, you're keeping safer. So that's the first layer. And that's kind of like the primary piece of our mission. The second piece is the live more piece. So that's kind of more broad, more holistic, thinking about your life outside of the car. So if you text less, as in if you look up from your phone, if you prioritize the real world over the digital world, then you can live more in the sense of having a fuller life, having deeper connections with the people around you, improving your mental health. All of that stuff is what comes from looking up in that way. And we really believe that these two things are connected. And this is absolutely critical to the mission of Text Less, Live More. And this is something that I really prioritize when I'm giving this presentation. So I hope that all of y'all will too, that if you are thinking about this in the holistic approach, that second piece, the live more piece, if you're practicing, you know, if you're practicing boundaries with your device in your life. So that might look like, you know, not having a rule where you're not going to take your phone out at dinner with your family, or setting your phone aside when you're doing your homework, or, you know, any kind of digital goal that you might have. And there are lots of different things that you can do. Obviously, it's not a one size fits all solution. That is practicing to make you a safer driver. If you build those habits outside of the car, it translates to when you're behind the wheel, because we know that these devices are incredibly addictive. And we're going to talk about some statistics about that in a second. But if you don't, and it's very addictive. They're designed to keep our eyes on them and our attention on them for as long as possible. It's not insurmountable, right? Like you're the boss at the end of the day, but it takes practice and it takes a concerted effort to not be on autopilot. And I think everybody who has a smartphone knows exactly what I mean when I say that all of a sudden you meant to be doing one thing and then you blink and it's been 45 minutes and you've been scrolling on Instagram. And that's not like a personal failing on anybody's part. That's Instagram functioning the way that it was designed to function. So if you're not practicing, you know, knowing when it's time to set your phone aside and knowing how to ignore your phone when it's important, then you don't have those skills when you're in the car. So it's really important to build skills inside and outside of the car. And that's kind of how this flow goes. So if you're really attentive to that, it'll make you a safer driver. If you're a safer driver because you're not distracted, then you know the importance of that holistic piece. So the flow. Okay, so let's get into some facts. I don't like to spend a ton of time on the distracted driving facts because most of the people that I present this to are, like you all, pretty familiar with this. I know that y'all have been talked to about distracted driving a lot, and I know that the numbers show that teenagers and adults are aware that distracted driving is dangerous. But it's important to have these here. When you're presenting, you can go through them one by one if you want to, or you can just kind of like talk about distracted driving and let folks read this because they will read it when it's up on the screen behind you. Or you can maybe draw people's attention to a couple. Obviously, we saw in the video the 9 people are killed per day statistic. I think one statistic that I have found is surprising to people and that I think is one that isn't as often brought up is this first one in the top left corner, that mental distractions can last up to 27 seconds after a text or distraction occurs. And often I like to say, you know, think about you're driving down the freeway, the speed limit is 55 or 65 or even 70 miles an hour, think about how far you can drive in 27 seconds. It's really far. And if you're distracted, then that distance, you're not present behind the wheel. And something else I do like to bring up on this slide is the 3 kinds of distraction. So there is cognitive distraction, which is what I'm talking about with the mental distractions. That just basically means you're thinking about something else other than driving. There's visual distraction, which is when you're looking at something else. And then there's manual distraction, which is when you're taking your hands off the wheel and doing something else physically. And obviously when you're looking at your phone, you're holding it in your hand, usually you're looking at it with your eyes, and then you're also thinking about it. So you are distracted as many ways as a person can be distracted. So that's something that's really important to talk about when we're thinking about digital distraction. Obviously, there are lots of other kinds of distraction: eating food, applying makeup, talking to your friends, messing with the radio. We are distractible creatures biologically. It's just the way that our brains work. So you're never going to eliminate distractions, right? At period, like you just can't do it biologically, but you can set yourself up to be as undistractible and mitigate distractions where you can. So sometimes that looks like, when you have your driver's license at first, you're only allowed to drive one person, right? Like if you have 4 people, that's really distracting. One person, maybe a little less distracting. You can always control the phone, right? You just don't look at it when you're driving. Like that's something that's within the realm of your power every time you get behind the wheel. So that is the kind of distraction that we're thinking about eliminating from the picture, because other stuff, other drivers, loud noises, your passengers, like that stuff is impossible to control sometimes, but this is very controllable. And that means that all of these crashes are super preventable. So this is the place during this presentation where you're talking about the hard and fast numbers, the like really tough truth about distracted driving. And you can ask questions to the room. Sometimes I like to say, like who has been in the car with someone who's driving distracted? Everybody raises their hand. Who has been in the car with a parent who is driving distracted, with a friend who is driving distracted, who has been distracted? And I think like those kinds of hand raising exercises are good. I like to say before I do them that we're in a safe space. We're in a no judgment zone. Nobody's perfect. And we'll do some more of that. I'll give you some more examples of the ways to do that on this next slide too. This one usually needs a little more explanation. Some people are not familiar with the concept of digital wellness, or at least putting it in those terms, which digital wellness is basically just thinking about the way that you use devices as adding to your life and not detracting from your life. As if you're digitally well, you're using your devices for connecting with people, for sharing photos, for listening to music, for all the really cool stuff that you can do with your device. And you're not having it affect you in a negative way. And often on this slide, I like to start by asking people what their devices add to their life. Because I think it's really important for us to establish that the device, the phone, is not evil, and we're not trying to tell people that they should throw their phones into the ocean and live like it's 1985, right? Like we know that everybody has a smartphone, it's not going anywhere. So we need to embrace it for the amazing tool that it is, while also knowing that like it can kind of ruin your life if you're not careful. So the digital wellness facts, these are less familiar to people. So I usually read all of these. And these are all pre-COVID facts. The numbers obviously are super different now. It's not better, but we're still studying what the impact of the pandemic has been on our digital wellness and our digital health. But anyone who has lived it, as we all have, knows that it didn't help in this struggle to have a healthy relationship with technology. Although, what would we have done during the pandemic without our technology, right? Like it was a savior, and also now we we're kind of deeper in the muck on the tech addiction. Anyway, so 2/3 of Americans say that they agree that unplugging is important. Unplugging to varying degrees, so like taking some time offline. 85% of smartphone users check their phones while talking to their friends and family. Everybody has experienced this. This is another good hand raise. Who has experienced this? Who has done this? Everybody. If you've never done it, you're a saint. Please tell us your ways. I've done it, and this is my job. It's really hard. When you're in the phone, you're not in the room, I like to say. 47% of Americans don't have a meaningful in-person social interaction on a daily basis. That one was scary to me before COVID, and now it is even scarier. Thinking about, folks who are only having interactions with each other on their devices. I'm actually currently coming out of a COVID isolation, and not having in-person interactions, not that good for your brain, as it turns out. So this is a really high number, and we know that it's higher now. 84% of adults can't go an entire day without their phone in hand. I think that that's got to be low. There are a couple studies that say people, like, it's like 80 or 90% of people would rather leave their house without shoes than without their phone for the day, which is pretty chaotic when you think about the climates that some people live in. The average person spends 5 years of their life on social media, at least. Again, these numbers are growing and growing. And then the average American adult spends 11 hours a day engaging with some form of media. So that's TV, video games, phone, etc. And again, this is, I would say, an underreport. And these are still like really staggering numbers. And there's a lot more data where this came from that, I should say there's a facilitation guide. I should have said this like a long time ago for this presentation. So everything that I'm telling you that you should say that isn't on the slide is in the facilitation guide. So you can read along when you're presenting. And there's lots of different options for questions or activities that you can do. It's very exciting. You'll love it. And so hopefully that, if anyone was afraid that they have to memorize what I'm saying, do not be afraid anymore. Okay, so that's the end of the mission section. Now we're going to get into the what are you going to do section. And I should say, again, like with this, like there is an activity option and discussion question option for each piece. I'm not doing that right now because it's hard on Zoom, and also we don't have that kind of time, but they're fun. You'll like to look through them. So we've got 3 asks from this presentation. We want people to take the pledge. We want people to know about the Get Living campaign, and we want people to tell somebody about this. Not huge asks. I'll go through them each one by one. The TextLess Live More pledge. So you can see this slide has the 3 ways you can take the pledge on it. So there's a little pledge banner on the table. You can see it's all beautiful and filled with colorful signatures. That's what we like to ask people to do when we say like host a pledge event. So you can make a banner, we'll send you a banner, you can get everybody to sign it, and then you can put it up in your hallway or in your classroom or wherever you want. As a reminder. That's a fun thing. That little card in the bottom right-hand corner is a pledge card. It's the size of a business card, and you can order those and you can hand them out to people. So you fill in your little name, you stick it in your wallet, or you can stick it like in your car somewhere that you can see it to remind you. You can give it to someone. So I often have like students take some and they'll like give one to their mom, or they'll like give one to their like babysitter who's not that good at drive. It's a nice way to open the conversation for you to say like, hey, I want you to take this pledge because I want you to be safe. And I've noticed that you're driving distracted. And then the third way that you can take the pledge is on the internet. Obviously, we are online. TextLess Live More is online. The irony is not lost on me. But this is the world we live in. So if you want, you can scan the QR code, take the pledge. If you guys want to take the pledge right now, go crazy. Or you can, encourage people when you're presenting to scan and take the pledge. I might not, depending on the audience. When you ask people to take their phones out, sometimes it's hard to bring them back to the presentation, but that is a very, very useful talking point for this particular presentation. So you could use that as a topic of conversation. I asked you guys to take your phones out and take the pledge. And then you kind of wait and see how long it takes everybody to drift back to you and say like, okay, who got sucked into Instagram? Who opened up TikTok? Who was looking at messages? That kind of thing. So this is the pledge. And you can see here's the text of the language of the pledge is, I pledge never to text, post, stream, or engage in any form of digital distraction behind the wheel. I take this pledge to save lives, etc. And then I pledge to step out from behind my screen and live more every day. So you've got the distracted driving and you've got the digital wellness all wrapped up in there. Excuse me. The second thing is the Get Living campaign. So this is something that you can do every month. That's a little bit more involved than just taking a pledge. It's designed to like get the wheels turning a little bit and to give you some ideas on like how you can practice your digital wellness, because it is a practice. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. And I mentioned before, it's not a one size fits all solution. There are lots of different ways to have healthy habits. So this is a good way to just like try some stuff on for size. It's like a charcuterie board of digital wellness. You can pick what you want. So there's a different action every month. It was designed so that you can do it by yourself if you want. You can do it like with your family or your friends, or you can do it with your chapter. So the activities, there's basically like a theme, and then there's a little activity. So the activity has a couple of different options, so that like if you're doing it by yourself as a practice, you can do it, or you can do it with a group. It's really fun. I think it's a good way to keep the like dialogue moving. If you're like, like you guys are getting this presentation for the first time, maybe you're going to go deliver this presentation to your chapter. Everybody's going to take the pledge. It's going to be awesome. And then you want to kind of like keep the spark alive. This is a really good way to do that. And you can scan this if you want to download the campaign for 2022. Obviously we're well underway, 4 months in, and it runs calendar year. So you will be in 2022 when you start the school year next year, and then 2023 will launch. And this is you can get people to scan it while you're presenting if you want. Again, challenge by choice. And then here we have some conversation starters. Again, like you can sprinkle these throughout the presentation if you want. So I mentioned before, like, how does your phone impact your life in a positive way? When we're talking about when we start getting into the facts and figures in the mission section, how does your phone impact your life in a negative way? This is a really good moment to talk about mental health. Obviously, we know that our devices, particularly social media, can have a really negative impact on levels of happiness and feelings of closeness and belonging, and that it can really cause a lot in the way of like anxiety, depression, self-harm. Excuse me. 1 second.
So thank you to everyone that's already been chatting in the chat. We'll give Marie a hot sec to catch her breath there. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in there. We did get a question about the cards and how we get those. So yes, we'll make sure that you get connected with us and Marie can get you those, or I'm sure there's also printable versions. I'm pretty sure I saw those around. Taking the pledge right now is a good way to tell people about the experience of taking the pledge, how simple it is to do. Like, it's not a 95 question word quiz. So it's really good to do from personal experience, just to give folks the idea, like it's very easy to take this pledge. Okay. How you doing?
Yes. Thank you, Lauren. I'm good. Absolutely A+ stalling, 10 out of 10. No notes. So A couple other good questions. How can you set yourself up for a distraction-free drive? So like making a game plan for everyone, it's different, right? Like we know that ideally you're putting your phone in the glove compartment, you're not looking at it, you're not thinking about it, it's out of sight, out of mind. But we know the reality is, like, I'll use myself as an example. I don't know how to navigate my way out of a paper bag. I have to use maps or I will be lost. So like, how am I going to do that in a safe way? Maybe you're a big music person. Like, how are you going to set up your playlist? How are you going to set up your queue beforehand? Like, do you have a way to get where you're going in a safe way? Do you have a game plan so that you know every time you get in the car, you buckle your seatbelt, you put your phone on the mount, you queue up 5 songs because you're going 20 minutes, you put your maps in, and then you're good to go, right? Like everyone's plan is different. So making the plan, checking your screen time. This is an activity that I love to do when I'm in person with people. It is wild. This is really where you have to emphasize the judgment-free zone, asking people to share their screen time. That's a vulnerable thing, but I think it's really eye-opening. It can be pretty fun. That activity is in the facilitation guide as well. And then, you know, what does living more look like for you? So like, if you're living more, what does that mean? For me, maybe it means like I'm outside, I'm with my friends, I'm having a good time doing something in nature. Maybe we're having a picnic. Maybe for you, it means like you're baking cookies with your mom, or maybe for you, it means that you're swimming at the pool, or, you know, everyone's joy is different. So thinking about what it looks like for you and how you can build that into your life. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation. Congratulations. Now you know a lot of things, and you can give this presentation with the help of the facilitation guide. I'm not crazy. I don't expect you all to have a perfect memory for everything I just said. So you can certainly read along in the facilitation guide. And also, like I said, there's a lot of customizable stuff. So like, if you want to mix it up, go for it. If you want to add some of your own slides, go for it. If you want to change the order of things, listen, you live your truth. It's your presentation. This material is yours to use however you think is going to be the most impactful and meaningful thing. Okay, a couple other things for you. We're doing a study this fall for TextLess Live More that's about figuring out teen driving habits and how TextLess Live More impacts that. So if you're really interested in TextLess Live More and you want to be like on the TLLM train, please do, all aboard. You can enroll, or you can enroll your school, or you can enroll your chapter. And this is something that you can talk to Lauren or you can talk to me about, but you can enroll now for the fall. So we're just kind of trying to like get our peeps in order so that we can launch this in the fall. I'm not going to get into it right now because we're running a little low on time, and I said 30 to 45 minutes, and I really believe in sticking to the time limits that I set, especially on Zoom. But you can see on this flyer a little bit more info. This is on our website. I can also send this around after if you want to know more about what it means to study teen driving habits and the impact of TextLess Live More. QR code, we love those here. Second thing for you guys, if you're really gung-ho on Team TextLess Live More, we want to work with you on the national level. So you can join the engagement board, which is basically like the National Student Leadership Council, but TextLess Live More edition. So we try and have like group, it's usually between 6 and 10 students, 1 from each state. And they work together on designing stuff for TextLess Live More. So the Get Living campaign is created completely by the engagement board. The engagement board does personal projects. I love them so much. They're so fun. I would love to have a New York student on the engagement board next year. So that application will go up in the late summer for the fall. And then there's also an ambassador program. If you're like, I don't want to wait until the late summer, I want to go now. Please do. That is basically like engagement board light. So you will be the person who is the TextLess Live More person in your community. Y'all are already the TextLess Live More person because you're going to give this presentation. So you may as well just be official ambassadors too. And that just means basically we get together, we talk about like what we're doing that month, we talk about ideas and plans, and we dream big and we make stuff happen, and it's very fun. And that's no limit. So like all of you guys could be TextLess Livermore ambassadors, and that would make me feel very happy. So those are the opportunities for you guys if you want to get even more involved. And that is the end of my slides. So I would love to know if anyone has any questions, or Lauren, if there's anything that you want me to like dive a little deeper on, I'm happy to go in a little bit.
I'm just going to throw on top of what you just said, the 2 opportunities that you put out there for the engagement board and the ambassador program are all things that can help you earn your volunteer hours as well. So if you're after that big fat President's Volunteer Service Award, gold level status, this is a good way to start getting some more of those hours if you're after that, or you need the hours for NHS or whatever else. So there's that on top of it.
Definitely. And I would say I'll go take it one step further there and say, like, if you're doing TextLess Livermore stuff and you tell us about it, we can write you hours for that. So like if you're doing the Get Living campaign and you're like, hey, I did an event in January, March, April. I did 2 in April. I did 1 in May, and here are the photos and here's what we did. Like that's something that you should be getting credit for. So please reach out if you need approval or certification for hours for TextLess Livermore things that you're doing. So like if you have a pledge event, if like I said, Get Living, if you do any stuff for the study, all that stuff counts too, because I know a lot of you are working towards your PBSA.
Okay, at this point, we can open it up to questions. If anyone has any questions about the program that you just saw, any questions about how you would facilitate this, how to access the resources, anything under the sun, what your favorite color is, I don't know, whatever.
My favorite color is yellow. I wanted to say that, I know the nails, read the question about the pledge cards. So all of our stuff should be in the SAD store. However, between me and you can get pledge cards and bracelets, which I'll show you. I'm wearing mine. It says TextLess Livermore, and then it says Merit's Way. I can send you bracelets, stickers. Do I have any stickers near me? No, I don't think so. But it's, oh, well, I can't show it to you because it's stuck to my computer, makes it kind of hard. Just like TextLess Livermore logo, great for a water bottle. So I can send you stickers, bracelets, pledge cards if you're doing an event. Just email me and say like, hey, I'm doing an event for 150 people. I've got you. That's no problem. If you're doing an event for like 10,000 people, that's a little different, but I want you to, so we'll make it work. So yes, you can order through the SAD store if you want to. That's great, but I can also just send it to you for free. So if you need stuff, you can reach out to me or you can reach out to Lauren. So I'm going to actually just drop my email address in the chat here so that everyone, oh, there you go. Thanks, Lauren. Now I have two email addresses in there just to keep things interesting. I'm a woman with like 40 email addresses. What can I say? Yeah, so you can reach out to us and anything that you want to make happen for TextLess Livermore, we will help you make it happen. Did I miss any other questions in here? I don't.
If you want to go back through, have at it. I'm just going to make the announcement again. If you are here because you want your certificate for being trained officially, I want to make sure that you all get that. If you registered yourself and you know that you registered via Zoom, that's how your certificates are going to be sent out. So just make sure if that's not how you registered, or you registered for someone, or you got a link from someone else, you just drop your information in the chat for me right now, which includes your name, how you want it on the certificate, and your email so I can get that out to you. And again, if you're sitting there as a group or with multiple folks, I can't see you. So I need to know how many folks are sitting there and who they are so I can also get them their certificates. So drop that in the chat as well.
Yes, and once we have your email address, Lauren or I will send you obviously your certificate, and you'll also get the links to the facilitation guide and the slides so that you can download them and use them as you see fit. I'm also going to send you a little very, very the briefest of surveys, just to make sure that that this was actually educational and that you are coming away from this webinar with the tools that you need to present this. no grades, just vibes, as you might say. But yeah, just so I'll send that along. It'll all be in a nice little email. And again, like if you have any questions or if you feel like you're kind of ready to present, but you're not really sure, like maybe you want a little refresher, we can set that up. Just holler.
Got a quick question in direct messages. Can you go into more detail about the ambassadors program and the committee?
Yes. Okay. So the ambassador program it's been kind of like the attendance has been waxing and waning. However, the way that it normally goes is we have a monthly meeting. It's everybody who's an ambassador from all over the country. It's super fun. You get to meet, mingle a little bit. We talk about, basically we go over like, hey, here's what's happening this month. So like for April's meeting, which happens at the end of March, okay, next month's Distracted Driving Awareness Month. Here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get 2022 people to take the pledge. We're trying to get people to sign up for the impact study. Like that's the ask for the month. And then we say like, the floor is yours. And so everybody has the rest of the meeting space to talk about like, here's what I did this month. It went great. Okay, here's what I did this month. It went horribly. What should I do differently? Right? Like we're swapping ideas. We're reporting on what we're doing. Because, Lauren's going to say like, oh, I did this awesome event where I like, this is a real event. Really good idea. Feel free to steal. Awesome event where my SAD chapter baked stuff. We had like cookies and brownies and like cupcakes and stuff, and everybody, it was like a bake sale, but instead of selling stuff for money, we had people put their phones away for all of lunch and then they could have something for free. And I'm like, oh snap, Lauren, that's a great idea. I'm going to steal that for my thing this month. Right. So it's basically just a collaboration station. And we're also like using you guys to help us push out the specific stuff that we're doing that month. So often it has to do with the Get Living campaign. Sometimes it has to do with something specific in the calendar year, like this month, Distracted Driving Awareness Month. Next month on May 5th is Digital Wellness Day. So like keeping everybody on top of all of those events, and just making sure that there's an easy way for you to disseminate our resources to the community. I hope that is helpful. Oh, and then the engagement board. That one is a little more involved. So the ambassador program is basically like you come to the monthly meeting and then you do your thing or not every month. Like you can do an event every month if you want. That's awesome. We would love that. But if you don't, that's okay. We're asking ambassadors to do one event per quarter. So every season you're doing an event. For the engagement board, they have in the fall, they're writing the Get Living campaign. So they do that as a group. In the spring, they each have a personal project. So for some of them, that's an event that they're doing in their communities, like a large scale event. For some of them, it's like a paper or an art project. It really depends on the student and their personal interests. And then each engagement board member does one event per month in their community. So that's a little bit more of a time commitment, but it is a really wonderful way to meet other students from across the country. And it's also a great way to get an introduction to leadership on the national level.
Any other questions from the crowd? Okay.
Awesome.
All right. I'm going to take that Marie did the most awesome job and you all completely understand this and can redo it tomorrow. So I love that for us. If you have any questions, we've put our info in the chat 100 times, but I will put my email in there one more time, or you can DM us at Sad Nation or at New York Sad if you happen to be in New York. We are great partners with TextLess and more. We really appreciate them doing this for us and being able to provide this whole programming opportunity. There's so many things you can do with TextLess Live More in your own home communities. And like the sky is really not even close to the limit. So, whatever you're dreaming of, whatever you're thinking about, just give us a shout. We'll figure out how to like brainstorm ideas and get you the resources that you need.
Yes, absolutely. We're super excited to support you. Either, virtually with an event that you're doing, or if you have a huge plan, you want to do a massive event, we can certainly come support you IRL. That's something that we're available to do, myself and a couple other members of the TextLess Live More team. So please, please, please reach out. Really looking forward to working with all of you, and thank you for your attention.
Awesome. With that, we will let you all go. Expect to see your certificates and things by the end of the week. Fingers crossed, hopefully, depending on my crazy schedule. And then this will be available for recording also. If you need to look back and get ideas as to how we talked about this, we'll send you all the facilitation guide and the presentation and everything else you ask for. Have a wonderful Wednesday evening.
Thank you.